Hello everybody, welcome to the latest edition of the Coaching Conversation. In this series, we're aiming to help business owners, business leaders and fellow coaches by sharing our experience and the experience of our guests who've coached people all around the world in all of different sectors and industries that you can imagine. So very little more to say other than do please now sit back, relax and enjoy this edition, and look out for a special offer for our loyal audience at the end of the programme. Hello everybody and welcome to the latest edition of the Coaching Conversation. I'm really excited to say I'm joined today by Hugh Massie, an Australian living now in Atlanta, Georgia, and has done for the last 20 years. We're going to talk about the most interesting title I think I've had for such a long time. So the title of this particular edition is Developing Exponential Mindset Growth for Achieving Limitless Abundance. We could be here a week, Hugh, with this.
We can be.
Hugh, before I introduce you to the audience, I really must recite your LinkedIn profile because, crikey, it says so much. Titan 100 CEO, Behavioral Solutions Architect, Money Energy Pioneer, DNA Initiator, High Stakes Decision Orchestrator, Boys Without Fathers Mentor, Award-winning author, and above all, devoted dad and golfer. You don't need to explain the devoted dad and golfer, but there's quite a bit there to tell us about. So tell the audience who you are and what all that means, Hugh.
Well, you know, if we get to the bottom line on that, Graham, you probably in some ways call me a reformed accountant, because I started my career at Arthur Andersen as a chartered accountant. That would be the English and Australian term for it, or CPA in the United States. I initially did audit and then tax, and worked in Southeast Asia. And you know, from that career, which I did for about 10 years, at 30 years old or so, I decided I'd become an entrepreneur. And I set up a wealth management financial services business in Sydney, serving high net worth families, you know, from $1 million to $1 billion. And the journey to DNA behavior really came out of that. But I think it had been a long time inside me, because when I worked at Arthur Andersen, I was always customized, and I think it was my success point really was I was able to customize the experience for each client in terms of how tax advice was delivered. Because, you know, some people want to read 50 pages, others only want to see a diagram and the bottom line in an executive summary. So I intuitively figured those things out, and when I started the wealth management business, I wanted to be different with that in terms of creating a personalized experience for people that was tailored around them and who they are, and really build it as a wealth mentoring type business. You know, you're a lot of what you're talking about is coaching, which I think, you know, the wealth mentoring is along those lines of how do you advise people with a coaching approach. But one day a friend of mine asked me, you know, what are you really passionate about? And I said, I want to help people all over the world become financially self-empowered. And with a few months of reflection on that, because it was a very powerful statement to make that I'd never made before, never thought of, never rehearsed. It came from the subconscious. I realized that if I was going to help people with their money and their life, I needed to help them build a higher level of self-awareness about their talents and their financial behavior. And secondly, I wanted to measure it for each person, because just talking about it isn't enough. You need to bring the invisible to the visible in some ways, and measurement does that. And luckily, Graham, I was fortunate enough to have a chance meeting with an industrial psychologist who came and worked in our financial services business, and she showed me what I was really talking about was people's natural hardwired behavior. that was shaped into them by the age of 3 years old. 85%. Now we now know 85% of your natural instinctive behavior, the core of who you are, is set by the time you're 3. There's some development that goes on after that, but you're largely set as a person then. And of course, your money perspectives, your money behaviors stem from who you are. I think that's one of the revelations for a lot of people. It doesn't just come from nowhere. If you're a spender, saver, risk taker, goal-driven person, or lifestyle-focused, whatever it is, that's coming from a place, and it's coming from you as a person. And ultimately, I've wanted people to know all of this to help them reduce stress in their life, because money causes stress, whether it's at an individual level for their financial planning, but also for leaders as well. And this is an area that we've gone into a lot more in recent years, is a CEO and how they behave with money has a very strong impact on company success and their financial attitudes. And so that's something that we measure and deal with with the senior leadership teams as well. So if that gives you an idea of my journey with this. So I think that the best of Hugh Massie comes to the world when you're combining really my professional experience as an accountant, because I see the world through numbers, but I also see the world through people and how people behave. And it's the intersection of those that I bring in serving people, in designing technology solutions, products. If that sort of puts more meat on the bone for you to
Yeah, that's great.
take the conversation forward.
So, do you have a wide range of clients, or is there a typical client that you often work with?
When we started the DNA behavior business, which really morphed out of the financial services business, it was mainly wealth management firms. And it was the small ones that anybody that breathed and would talk to me. And gradually we progressed to enterprise. And today, though, and that's 20 years ago, today, half our business is in the financial services, insurance, banking sector. The other half is outside it. And we have, clients from the US military down to your 5-person entrepreneurial startup organization. The principles apply everywhere. Understanding people, getting more transparency on who you're working with, how do you interact with them, and more self-awareness for yourself. They're the success factors. Doesn't matter where you are.
So, from your point of view, then, what is an exponential mindset growth? What does that look like or feel like?
So exponential, can be, I suppose, expressed in terms of Moore's law of, doubling doubling your capacity every 2 years type growth. But I think that I look at it a little bit more broadly than that, in terms of your potential as a human is unlimited. And if you get your identity and your X factor right, you get a business set in the right way, you can the world is your oyster. You can achieve really unlimited potential, and you will have at some point a very sharp growth trajectory that's potentially beyond comprehension, because when you get yourself right and the business model right, and of course timing is all important on those things, you can make a huge quantum leap. And I think that's really what I'm trying to help people do, is to change their mindsets, their belief systems, so that they set themselves up to make a quantum leap in their life, or multiple quantum leaps. And quantum leaps aren't always, Graham, making a dramatic change in everything. It can be that. It can just be one step sideways and changing the angle at which you're looking at something and things begin to flow. It could be one relationship that steps into your life. It could be getting your health right. Could be getting your marriage right. Whatever blockage that might be there, or something that you just haven't opened up yet. It doesn't have to be a blockage. You might not have opened up a part of the universe for yourself. You can make a quantum leap, and from there you never look back. And I think when you look at people who have been very successful, that there is a short window of time when everything comes together. There's like a season for success, and they've worked hard at it. And you'll see some people. I know one person that I worked a lot with in Australia. I think he hit brick walls a lot of times till he was around 50, early 50s. Suddenly got the magic formula right with a business investment. And today he's, an extremely wealthy man. And I would say I've got other clients that are like that. And is it all measured in? And I don't want that to sound like it should all be measured in just in money, because it doesn't have to be. Because I don't like measuring success just in terms of dollars in the bank. I try to measure it by human impact, and that's also a way of expressing exponential growth in terms of how broad is your and deep is your impact across the universe. Hopefully you get the right business model sitting behind that. But I think if I pinned it down, it's really about making a quantum leap or a series of quantum leaps.
And limitless abundance, you mentioned you don't measure it only in money, but what do you mean by limitless abundance?
I think, sometimes I would talk about it sort of like in having a prosperity mindset and having a poverty mindset. And I think a poverty mindset's being pretty much negative about everything, maybe tying everything to money, operating from a world of self-limiting beliefs, as opposed to abundance being far more open, being curious, helping other people, living beyond yourself, trusting in the universe that it is going to deliver to you in a way what you deserve at some point in time, and not being shackled by whether it's toxic relationships, toxic workplace, poor beliefs about money, or a poor relationship with money would be one of the big ones, or poor health. I think that's really, a place of abundance is in some ways saying that everybody can have, a great life, a great world, if they put their mind to it and can help create that for others. And by helping create it for others, you're going to create more for yourself. That's just what's going to happen.
Interesting. So bringing those two things together by changing your mindset, becoming more self-aware, and realizing the way you're looking at the world, the way you're approaching life's challenges, can of itself unlock the ability to find whatever the blockages are that you're really, the brick walls, as you put it, that you're bumping into, and you can take them down or go around them to create unlimited success, whatever that is that you choose to define it as.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think if I bring up another word just so that the audience remembers this, stress is a big driver underneath all of this, and it's a big driver of mine and why I do this business. If I can get more people aligned to who they are so they can optimize their talents and their financial behavior, that will reduce stress. That will increase happiness, success, and health. But if you are stressed, and money causes a lot of stress for people, that's global, which then impacts your happiness, but it impacts your cognitive ability as well. Your ability to think, your ability to make good decisions. There's a lot of metrics on that in terms of how much stress is a negative factor. And I think if we can reduce stress for people in whatever area or zone they're operating in, we can then liberate them to flourish. And I think that's the key thing. And the quantum
Really,
leaps are
really
going to
good
come
point.
then.
Yeah, great point, Hugh. I mean, the interesting thing about all of that is outside of physical violence, the only person that puts you under stress is you. So you can choose, you can learn to not do that.
Yep.
So when you're working with your clients, are you working with corporate entities and teams of people, or are you usually working just one to one? How does that normally unfold?
Yeah, for us as a DNA as a business, we're typically working with the corporate entity, and we want to serve them from the top down. I think if the CEO is not engaged, or the leader of the business is not engaged in this, nothing's going to really work. They've got to, because that sets the standard for the company, that sets the culture. Big thing we believe in is psychological safety. So this has got to be, from a psychological standpoint, a level playing pitch across the organization. And everybody's got to be open about who they are and sign up for that set of values for this to really work. If it's just a line manager down the way, thinking, well, I want my team to communicate better and to work better, but he's getting crushed by a senior C-suite leadership team and treated badly, nothing's going to work, right?
Understand that.
But
So
at the end of the day, businesses have got to make money, and there is a tense relationship between the financial behavior that gets the results and managing a people-centric culture. But it can be done with the right mindset. Very few of us are wired to do both. I mean, I am probably more of the results-driven financial behavior orient, from that sense as a leader, but I've had to learn to manage people. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been in business. And I think our business shows, well, we started as a startup, but we've got 60 people, and a lot of them have been there a very long time. And so have the clients. That says something. And I think that if you then look at other businesses, can the same be said? And so, we all have to learn to manage and adapt ourselves, in this area. But it's absolutely key that the leadership does demonstrate the right financial behavior, but they've also got to manage people the right way with the right level of psychological safety, or it doesn't work. And just take a look at Boeing right now it's a big case study.
yeah,
It was a company that had a culture based on safety. It was an untouchable brand. Change of leadership when McDonnell Douglas leaders started to take over. Very financial stock market type orientation. And the psychological safety went. People couldn't raise concerns about safety issues. Corners were cut. Planes fall out of the sky. And now what do you see? Every day you see media about Boeing. And I'm not saying Airbus is perfect, but Boeing has set itself up to fail in a lot of ways and destroy years of credibility, in a short period of time, because it hasn't got that balance of financial behavior and people centricity right.
it's a very, very good worked example. That in your clients, and so obviously I get the reason why the CEO's involvement is critical. Without him or her committed to the situation, nothing really is valid. So what is it a CEO might be thinking or seeing that's their challenge that they want to fix at the point where they ask you to help them? What would that look like typically?
Yeah, so it's interesting, question in that usually they are often, one area would be that they're just stuck in terms of how they're managing potentially some of their C-suite leadership team. There's some blockages there. They see a high performer that's sitting there in the team is getting results, but maybe the feedback from lower down isn't good. The energy in the conversations isn't right. There's a lot of disagreements over decision making. they would be some of the times that we're asked to get brought in. I think one of the areas nowadays is really around innovation as well, because companies have to innovate far more quickly, dynamically, and with less financial resources than they ever did to survive. And, there's PwC research out there showing that 45% of CEOs are concerned their business, and this is of major companies, will not be there in 2030 because of AI and technology changes. But the change doesn't happen by magic. Who in your team is going to help you make those business changes? And the CEO may not be that innovative person themselves, particularly in larger companies. They've got a lot of areas to manage, protocols, boards, whatever. But there could be some people deep down inside the business that would be able to help design new products, do it cost effectively if they're nurtured and managed the right way. So I sort of look at our role is to help, step in beside the CEO and look deep into the organization to where the biggest challenge is and get it addressed. And, our sort of opening gambit questions are around what customer or client service processes are having the most impact, are the biggest driver on the business success, and how is that working? And we work backwards then through the company. That would be our starting point. Because if you haven't got it right in the customer service or the product delivery that's affecting the customers the most and your revenue, you haven't got a business, or there's a lot of business damage. So that's really where we go looking once we're brought in. But someone will bring us in, a CEO will bring us in probably for another problem. But to solve that problem, you've got to go deeper into the business.
Right.
And it's got to be a deeper review of the people, ultimately.
Do you have a standard format of diagnostic, or is it all?
So DNA behavior, being a behavioral firm ourselves, we developed our own system in 2001, which was initially used in the financial planning, wealth management arena, but it's now used, as I said earlier, Graham, across all businesses. So it's our own proprietary system that provides the measurements that we want to have to achieve these goals. It's very capable of going deep into a business, starting with the CEO down to your factory line worker, or customer service person or administrator. And, we customize, though, what measurements are brought out for each person in there, because what we have is a lot of measurements, but we just bring up what is needed to be looked at to help the people flourish, but also to help management make better decisions.
So you're effectively benchmarking the culture on like a cross-section of the organization. Is that
that's something that gets done as well, in a separate diagnostic. So if you benchmark the culture, and we look at that as terms of organizational energy, that's going to tell you where some of the problems are. Is there the right level of employee engagement, or is there the right level of client engagement? You can have situations where there's mismatches in that starts to get interesting. And because I've seen businesses where the employees are highly engaged, but the clients are not. And that's a problem. And now you can have clients who are engaged and the employees are not. Now, that doesn't last for a long time, because usually the employees infect the clients. But, you look for those mismatches. Where are their process breakdowns? Is this happening in a particular division? If you're looking at a bigger company, starts to tell you a lot. But then those mismatches or blockages are all coming because of people. And through our DNA discovery assessments, we're able to pinpoint pretty much exactly where that problem's coming from, and which style of person, which person or group of persons is causing it. we're able to heat map, if you want to call it, the whole organization and tell you where the points of engagement and disengagement are. That's what we're doing.
Once you've done the diagnostic, do you then help them on the journey of change? Is that part of your role?
That is part of our role, and depending on what the changes need to be, we might have to bring in other consultants, but we are a central player in the change management process, because change has got to come from how the people in the business are motivated to make that change, which means understanding them.
Is there a set pattern? Does it normally take 3 months to get to this point, another 3 months to get to that point, or is every assignment unique?
Every assignment's unique, but no change happens overnight. I think you can make certain shifts fairly quickly and decisions, but to cement them, habit change takes quite a while. And I don't think you're going to see serious changes in under a year, really. But that doesn't mean that we're standing in the corridors crowding out the business for a whole year. But I think it does need, consistent and constant monitoring. And I think this is where the leadership needs consistent coaching. You can, like, I suppose it's like a golfer. If you're a professional golfer, you can make a swing tweak here and there, and then get back out on the course, and you roughly know what you should be doing. But everybody needs somebody watching themselves or helping them be watched. I mean, even Steve Jobs had a coach, right? The professionals at the end of the day, whatever industry or sports you're in, the top players, they have a coach, because we all have blind spots. And it doesn't take much to get off track. And I think if you're trying to make change, you do need some outside help to watch over what you're doing.
Cultural change is especially difficult, and if it's going to be over a long time frame, such as a year, which I fully understand, I recognize why it might take that long. You need a lot of stamina and a lot of focus and a lot of determination as the leader, as the leadership team, to continue and pursue that, because there might come a point where you think, well, we've got this far, it's great. Do we need to keep going? So do you find that you have to re-energize? Do you have to reinvigorate the teams at various stages?
I think that every quarter there needs to be some checking in to monitor where the change is at, what's working, what's not working. There might need to be adjustments made, because I think that, to your point, Graham, you could be blindly going down a path because you thought it was right up front, and then you learn some more, and it needs an adjustment. I think you have to, and as a leader, you've got to be prepared to make that adjustment. But also there needs to be plenty of communication along the way, so that people know how it's going, that this is on track, or as a leadership team, this is what we're feeling needs to be done. Of course, depending on what the change is, there could be somebody who's in the way that needs to be, addressed in some way. I'm not necessarily saying fired, but their mindset might need to be changed. They might need to be managed, moved in roles, whatever. Those things are all part of, I suppose, they're all the landmines that come up as you do these things. But you can't just come up with it, well, we're going to go down this strategy, throw it up against the wall, and expect magic to happen. I think that it needs constant management. It needs the right people through the team believing in it, to make that happen.
And so, do you find that with a lot of the organizations you work with, they become completely renewed and they've forgotten who they used to be or the way they used to behave? Is that an outcome you see?
That is an outcome if that's what you as the CEO and the senior leaders want to happen. And that's then that's absolutely got to come from the top. You've probably got to look at redefining some of the corporate values, some of the mission principles. That's absolutely what what can happen. It could, in this day and age, particularly with innovation being, so important, a new product helps bring freshness into an organization. I think Apple's probably been a good example of that in the early 2000s with Steve Jobs innovating the new products that we all use today. I don't think that they've brought out as many new products since Steve Jobs passed away, but that brought a fresh life to Apple.
Yeah.
And so it's not just some management rah-rah that changes and makes the organization feel fresh. It's a lot of fundamental things.
Do you work mainly in the US or do you work globally? What's your client?
Our company does work globally. Because I'm centered here in the US, more of what we do does happen in the United States, and we have a bigger team. But we have clients all over the world, clients tapping into our system from 125 countries. But I know a lot of that can be done by Zoom these days. A lot more is done technologically. AI. So we've got a lot of very strong AI features in our technology that just help deployment be easier. Graham.
Hugh, this has been, as I said, the kind of subject that we could literally spend
years on.
So it's been great chatting with you. Thank you very much for taking the time to share with us. If anyone in the audience wants to find you, how can they?
Yeah, the best way to find me, Graham, is to go to dnabehavior.com. You can see everything that we do. It's pretty transparent there. And then also in LinkedIn, which you mentioned at the start, you can look up my bio. There aren't too many Hugh Massies in Atlanta. There's only one. Make contact with me there, and I'll be delighted to talk to anybody that's listened to this today, whenever they listen to it. Because this great thing about podcasts, Graham, is they live on a long time.
They do. Hugh, it's been great talking with you. Thank you very much. So there you are, everybody. That's it. And we'll see you again next time. Bye. So there you have it. The latest edition of the Coaching Conversation. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it useful. And I hope it did what it set out to do. As promised at the beginning of the program, here is a special offer for you, our loyal audience. If you reach out to me at gwiley@sagegreen.com and mention this podcast, we'll make available to you a coaching program for you and or your team at a 50% discount. So where can you reach us? So it's definitely gwiley@sagegreen.com. You can also reach us at the executive mindset at sagegreen.com, and our website is clearly theexecutivemindset.co.uk. If you enjoyed this, do please leave us with a wonderful rating on Google. We'd really appreciate that. So nothing more for me to say now other than see you again soon.